This tweet reminded me of my own robotics competition story, but I'm going to read through this and I'm going to tell you about the robotics competition I was in when I was like 16 and how that turned out. And maybe there's a lesson to this story, but let's just look at this. So, this person said, when I was in school, they held a robotics competition. It was pretty simple conceptually. You had to make a firefighting robot. It would have to navigate a maze, find a candle, and put it out, fully automated and no remote control. I can't remember the exact size, but I think the robot had to be smaller than 1 foot in length, width, and height. Scoring was as follows. You start with your time, how long it takes to search every room and put out the candle. Get deductions, bonus points if your robot put out the candle with anything other than a fan, such as water. Searched every room, didn't just stop at the one with the candle. Could separate into parts to search for rooms in parallel, operated on very little code. So this person entered a dry block of ice. It basically just had a spring-powered hammer to shatter it into little pieces when the start timer went so that it would evaporate faster. In seconds, the entire maze was filled with a white fog and the candle definitely went out. I had the fastest time by a landslide. Even before you counted my deductions, didn't use a fan? Check. Searched every room? Check. Separated into parts to put out fires in parallel? Check. I think I could have been the only person in history to ever win a robotics competition without writing a single line of code or soldering a single wire, but alas, the judges disqualified me by unanimous vote. Why are you booing me? I'm right. So, basically, like, they designed a solution. They didn't use a robot, but they designed a solution that worked better than any of the robots that could have. I mean, what robot could have turned into vapor and searched a maze and then put out a candle with its own vapor, right? So that also reminds me of the robotics competition I was in when I was like 16. So I was at it was like a girls' engineering thing, kind of like a week-long camp back at KU when I was 16 years old. And all of the girls chose different subjects they wanted to do. Um, I chose like the robotics route instead of like, I guess they had like probably bioinformatics. I remember there being structural engineering and some, like, they went to a tour of some sewers or something like that. But I was in the robotics one. And so throughout this week long, or was it just a weekend? I don't know. I feel like, you know, time when you're a kid moves much slower than as an adult. But maybe it was only a weekend or a few days. But they had activities for us, such as they also, I remember, had us go to some sort of gym and do Pilates or something. And me, being the awkward social, um, not social person, also afraid to work out in front of other people, I like literally just sat in the corner with a notebook and I was like writing ideas for my robot because I was like really into this robot. I was like, how can I win this robot? Meanwhile, like all the other girls were like doing exercising and having fun, and I was like, no, I must design my robot. um, I don't remember what other activities we had. I remember that they watched Footloose and they had a makeup party. Footloose. And I was like, ugh, that's not cool. And then they had a makeup party, and I like never wear makeup, so I was like, don't want to do that either. I wasn't a very good girl. So basically, I was just working on my robot this entire time. Then we would go to these computer labs at the KU campus, and there would just be, I mean, we didn't have laptops at that time. It wasn't laptops, it was desktop computers in the computer lab. They're probably still desktop computers. So I had a teammate who didn't really do anything, and I was like, I gotta do this robot. I gotta do this robot. This is me. And then there was another team of girls. and then they were just looking up pictures of KU basketball players the entire time. And they did some coding, which we'll get to here in a minute. But they, like, as far as I could tell, I was kind of a scumbag teenager. I was like, those girls aren't as good as me. They're looking up pictures of boys, and I'm thinking about robots, not boys. So I was kind of insufferable like that. Um, so I was just working on this robot, and they were like, we didn't even build the robots. They were like little robots that had different sensors and like an API. So I was like, mine is gonna win because my robot had like it would sense things. So it had like a routine where it would be like, I don't remember what kind of sensor it had. It was probably just like a motion sensor or something like that. If it sensed movement, it would charge. Otherwise, it would be in kind of like a patrol pattern. Um, I don't really remember anything else that I did with this robot, but this is kind of important to the story. So finally, I don't remember if it was a square mat or whatever, but we had our robots on like a square mat. There was only me, my team, and a different team. So we had two robots. And so my robot had all this code, patrol, sense, charge, and then their robot was move in circle. And that's literally all it did, was it just went in a circle. That's all they programmed it to do. So what ended up happening is at some point, my robot sensed that robot as it was just, happily moving in its circle. It was like, doo doo doo. So my robot saw that robot, and it charged at the robot the way it's supposed to. And, by the time the robot got to where that robot was, the other robot who was just happily moving along, it had already continued moving out of the way. And my robot basically just charged out of the arena and lost. So, I was very mad that their robot had won when literally the code was like turn maybe like 1 degree move or something like that. Like that's probably what they wrote in their code. And me being such a stupid like 16-year-old, I was really such a pain in the butt. Um I was like, "No!" I was really unhappy, and I held that unhappiness with me for a while. But it's kind of like this robot ice story, the block of dry ice. Like, do what you're supposed to do to get the job done. Like, you don't have to be fancy. You don't have to have a lot of fancy code. They didn't necessarily have to program their robot to be on the offensive. They won because they weren't on the offensive at all. They just were, I mean, in a way, focused on dodging, but this is just go in a circle, and this one's just be a block of ice and evaporate. That's what it did. Um, so, sometimes the best design, I don't know, maybe it, like doesn't feel like the right design, right? I mean, if you're thinking about the constraints of the design, sometimes it's not what feels right, it's just what's simple and like gets the job done with the minimum amount of stuff. But yeah, I just thought like I'd share that robot story and we'd talk about, me as an angry 16-year-old. Also, like, I couldn't get any dates when I was 16, so I was very angry about that. I was like, but I'm so cool, I play video games! That's exactly the kind of girl, teenager I was when I was young. I don't suggest being that type of person. I grew out of it. Uh, but I was an angry 16-year-old. And I was antisocial, and I just didn't like people. So now I'm a chill person. I'm much more chill, and I'm much happier for it. So be chill. Oop, no, thumbs up like this. There we go. There we go. Okay, so that's the story.